All right, today we are diving into something pretty amazing. It's an ancient practice for getting your mind into a state of clarity so deep, so focused, that it's often just described as blissful. Think of it like a journey to the absolute peak of mental focus, and we're about to look at the map together. You know that feeling, right? When you're so deep into something, maybe it's playing music or coding or painting, that the whole world just melts away. And time, well, time just stops mattering. We usually call that being in the flow. What we're talking about today is like that, but turned all the way up to 11. And this state has a name. It's called Jhāna. It's a word from the ancient Pali language, and it basically means a profound state of meditative absorption. And we're not just going to talk about the theory. We're going to be looking at some fresh translations straight from the original texts to really see what this journey into the mind is all about. Okay, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll get a handle on what jhana really is. Then, we'll walk through the 4 stages one by one, from rapture to stillness to equanimity and finally to purity. And we'll wrap it all up by asking, what's the whole point of this? Let's dive in. So it's really important to get this. Jhana isn't just one single Zen moment you pop into. The old texts describe it as a path, a progressive climb, where your mind gets more and more refined, more unified, and honestly, more powerful. Each step builds on the last one, letting go of the noisier stuff in your head to access these deeper, clearer levels of awareness. Our journey begins right here, with the first jhana. And this Pali phrase, viveka jam piti sukham, is so cool. You can think of it as meaning rapture and pleasure born from stepping back. That phrase is basically the instruction manual. It tells you exactly how to get there. You've got to create the right conditions inside your own mind. So, to get into this state, the mind has to take a temporary break from all the sensory input and from our usual unhelpful mental habits. But it's not a lazy state. The mind is still very active, applying and sustaining its focus. And the result is this really powerful mix of 2 feelings: piti, which is like an energetic, almost thrilling kind of joy, and sukha, which is a much deeper, calmer sense of contentment. The texts have this fantastic simile to get the feeling across. Picture a skilled bath attendant taking bath powder and slowly kneading water into it until it becomes one single perfect ball, completely saturated with moisture, through and through, but not a single drop is dripping out. That's the first jhana. Your entire being, mind and body, is just saturated with this incredibly pleasant, joyful feeling. Now, to go even deeper, something has to be let go of. That active, directed thinking that got you here, it was super useful. But from this new vantage point, it's actually seen as a subtle distraction. So the mind lets it go to find something even quieter. And that brings us to this second jhana. The Pali phrase here is samadhijan piti sukham, which we can translate as rapture and pleasure born of concentration. Now listen to that shift. The source of the joy isn't the act of stepping away anymore. It's coming from an internal quality of stability. At this point, that active internal monologue has gone quiet. The mind is totally unified and settled. The rapture and pleasure are still there, absolutely, but now they're not coming from the effort of focusing. They're bubbling up naturally from the mind's own deep stability and confidence. And the simile for this state, it's just beautiful. Imagine a deep lake way out in the mountains with no rivers or streams flowing into it. Instead, a cool spring of water is welling up from deep within, filling the entire lake from its own source. The mind in the second jhana is exactly like that. It's self-sufficient, it's tranquil, and it's filled with a joy that arises completely from within itself. Okay, to go deeper still, another refinement has to happen. That energetic, bubbly joy of piti, the rapture, is now seen as just a little too exciting, a subtle disturbance. So the mind lets that go, trading in that excitement for a calm that's even more profound and way more sustainable. Which brings us to the third jhana, described by the phrase upekkako, satima, sukhavihari. This points to a state where you are equanimous, you're mindful, and you're abiding in a very subtle kind of pleasure. It's all about a deep, balanced serenity. So here, that energetic buzz is gone. What's left is a more subtle, all-pervading pleasure that's experienced with total mindfulness and this powerful sense of balance. It's so good, in fact, that the texts say this is what the noble ones call a truly pleasant way to live. The image for this one is a lotus that is born, grows, and lives its whole life entirely underwater. From its root all the way to its tip, it is completely pervaded by cool, clean water, never even breaking the surface. This perfectly illustrates a state of being totally soaked in a calm, cool pleasure, completely independent of whatever is happening in the outside world. For the final stage, one last thing has to be relinquished, and this is a big one. Even that subtle, beautiful feeling of pleasure, sukha, is let go of. The mind is moving beyond the whole push and pull of pleasure and pain, aiming for an unshakable purity. And here we are, the culmination, the fourth jhana. The Pali phrase, upekasati parisadihim, really says it all, the purity of equanimity and mindfulness. This is a state that's beyond pleasure and pain, beyond joy and sorrow. At this point, the mind is absolutely still, but it's also intensely aware. There's no longer any grasping for pleasure or pushing away of pain. All that's left is this radiant, powerful equanimity in a mindfulness that is perfectly sharp. It is the absolute pinnacle of mental balance and clarity. The simile for this state really captures just how all-encompassing it is. Just imagine someone sitting down and they're enveloped from head to toe in a clean white cloth. Not a single part of their body is left uncovered. That's what this is like. The mind is completely pervaded by this pure, bright awareness. So this all sounds pretty incredible, right? But it brings up a really practical question. Why do this? What's the point of training your mind to reach these states? Is it just some kind of pleasant escape? Well, the texts are crystal clear about its purpose. They basically give three big reasons. First, it's a pleasant abiding. It's a genuinely happy and peaceful way to exist in the here and now. Second, and this is the big one, a mind that is this stable and clear is the perfect instrument for seeing reality as it actually is, just like a perfectly still lake reflects the sky without distortion. And third, it's that clear seeing that ultimately frees the mind from the deep down roots of stress and suffering. So you see, these ancient texts aren't describing some mystical, far-off state that's impossible to reach. They're giving us a training manual for the mind, showing us its incredible potential for stability and clarity. And that leaves us with a really powerful question to ponder. What kind of potential is lying dormant in our own minds?